Is there any other service I might perform? I suppose you best be visiting whorehouses. Hard duty, my lord. Jory Cassell and Eddard Stark. A Game of Thrones, Chapter 27. Eddard 6. House Cassel are a minor house sworn in service to House Stark of Winterfell, often acting for them as stewards, castellans, master-at-arms, and many other roles within the Stark household. House Cassel sits in an interesting position, as we both somehow know a lot about them during their current era, during the main A Song of Ice and Fire book series, but next to nothing about their backstory. It is believed their arms are 10 white wolves' heads, 4, 3, 2, and 1 on grey, with a black border, with the wolf heads likely in reference to their association with House Stark. We know very little about their early history and how they ended up in the service of House Stark, or even how long they've served them at Winterfell. The earliest information we have of them comes during Robert's rebellion. Martin Cassel was one of Lord Eddard Stark's companions during Robert's rebellion, and it seems he fought with him at the Trident, was present during the sack of King's Landing, and Eddard lifting the siege of Storm's End. He would follow Ned on his search for his missing sister, Lyanna, leading them to the Tower of Joy in the Red Mountains of Dawn, where Eddard Stark and his men faced 3 of King Aerys II's Kingsguard in a legendary battle in which Martin lost his life. After the battle, Eddard ordered the tower torn down and used its fallen stones to build cairns for the dead. Martin is believed to have had 4 sons, but only one of these sons, Jory Cassell, lived to adulthood. It seems that Jory, despite being a child, was present at some key events during the rebellion, as he attended the wedding of Catelyn and Lysa Tully at Riverrun to Eddard Stark and Jon Arryn, respectively. In the course of the bedding ceremony, Jory tore Catelyn's gown in his haste. For more than 8 years prior to the start of the main books, Jory has served Eddard as captain of the guard at Winterfell. In earlier days, he once took Robb Stark, Bran Stark, and Jon Snow into the Wolfswood to fish for trout in the swift stream near Winterfell. Robb and Jon also frequently hunted in the forest with their father and Jory, and he often sparred with Robb, Jon, and Theon Greyjoy in the yard at Winterfell. On one occasion, laughing, Jory separated Sansa and Arya Stark during a snowball fight after a rare summer snowfall. He was also chased by Bran across the rooftops of Winterfell multiple times. Jory was known for his smile, which he often directed at Arya Stark, and he was given to joking while dining in the Great Hall of Winterfell. A skilled warrior, Jory served not only as Eddard Stark's captain of the guard, but also as one of his trusted confidants. His armour consisted of mail, a plain blue-grey plate without ornament, with a thick cloak with a longsword on his hip. Never draw your sword unless you mean to use it. How many times must I tell you, foolish boy? Rodrik Cassel to Robb Stark. A Game of Thrones, Chapter 14. Catelyn 3. We also know of 2 more members of House Cassel. So Rodrik Cassel is a knight and the master-at-arms of Winterfell at the start of the main books. He is the elder brother of Martin Cassel, and thus Jory's uncle. Rodrik is described as a stout man with soft flesh beneath his chin, his hair white. He wears large white whiskers that he tugs at impulsively. Loyal, courteous, and courageous, Rodrik places little value on singers, believing that boys are better suited to swordsmanship than music. Despite having a knighthood, he showed no interest in tourneys or fighting for sport. Though he speaks of the gods, it's unclear whether he follows the old gods of the north or the new gods, which is even more complicated when you consider he has a knighthood, which is closely associated with the Faith of the Seven. He wears ringmail and carries a dagger and a longsword beneath a dark, hooded cloak. He possesses a dappled gelding and keeps a red dog, which he seems to breed. Rodrik believes strongly in rigorous training, holding that men should test themselves against skilled opponents in the yard before facing real battle. He has also instructed his pupils on defensive advantages of using spiral staircases. We learn from Maester Luwin, the Maester of Winterfell, that Rodrik's mother died 40 years ago, and he served House Stark all his life. Some have taken this to mean This is also when House Cassel began serving at Winterfell, but this aspect of the house's history is very much debated, with no clear answers. As Master at Arms, it was Rodrik who trained Robb Stark, Jon Snow and Theon Greyjoy in arms, with Jon Snow notably taking many of his lessons to heart, becoming a fine swordsman in his own right after joining the Night's Watch. Eddard respected Rodrik greatly and trusted him implicitly. He would at times invite him to join him for dinner at the High Table in the Great Hall of Winterfell. It seems that Rodrik married at least 3 times and has had several daughters, but the only one still alive and whom we know anything about at the start of the main books is Beth Cassel. She was raised at Winterfell with the Stark children. Though closer in age to Arya Stark, she tends to hover around Sansa's more glamorous retinue. Beth is said to have thick, curly hair. Jory and Rodrik both play important roles in the events leading up to the War of the Five Kings. Jory Cassell is present when Eddard Stark and his retinue discover a dead direwolf with an antler lodged in its throat and her living pups nearby. Jory calls it a omen, noting that the pups were likely born after their mother's death. In preparation for King Robert Baratheon's visit to Winterfell, Eddard considers sending Jory south along the King's Road with an honour guard to escort the king. As captain of the guard, he accompanies Eddard to King's Landing when he takes up the position of Hand of the King. On the way to the capital, after Arya Stark's direwolf attacks Prince Joffrey Baratheon at the Trident, Jory is the first to find Arya after she flees. He helps her drive Nymeria away by throwing stones at the wolf, reassuring Arya that the woods are full of game. Upon arriving in King's Landing, Jory receives a new cloak befitting his office, heavy grey wool trimmed with white satin. Jory aids Eddard in the investigation into the death of Jon Arryn, questioning former members of the late Hand's household. Though the newly knighted Sir Hugh refuses to speak with him, Jory interviews a stable boy turned watchman, a serving girl, and a potboy turned cordwainer. After learning that Jon Arryn and Lord Stannis Baratheon had visited a brothel, Ned sends Jory to discreetly investigate the city's brothels. He would later go on to compete in the Hand's tourney, unhorsing Sir Horace Redwine and one of the Freys before ultimately losing to Lothar Brune after a judgment by King Robert. Jory would later accompany Eddard to Shatire's brothel in search of one of Robert Baratheon's bastard children. On their return to the Red Keep, Jory and his men are ambushed in the streets by guards loyal to House Lannister. Acting on the orders of Jaime Lannister, they are slain as retribution for Catelyn Stark's capture of Tyrion Lannister. After the attackers depart, a wounded Eddard cradles Jory's dead body in the street. Following Jory's death, Ned sends his body to the Silent Sisters to be prepared for burial at Winterfell, where he is laid to rest beside his grandfather. It grieves me that we must meet as foes. My own grief is that I must wait a while to hang you. Theon Turncloak, Theon Greyjoy and Rodrik Cassel. A Clash of Kings, Chapter 66, Theon 6. So Rodrik Cassel plays a very minor role at the events at Winterfell prior to Eddard and Jory heading south. We do know that his dog gives birth to a small litter of pups, with only 2 surviving. Robb Stark would suggest that she might nurse the direwolf pups found by the Stark children, but Lord Eddard dismisses this, believing the direwolves would kill the dog. As Master at Arms at Winterfell, Rodrik oversees Bran Stark's sparring with Prince Tommen Baratheon and would later forbid Robb Stark and Prince Joffrey from training against one another with live steel. After the royal party leaves the King's Landing and after the discovery of a Valyrian steel dagger following the attempt on Bran Stark's life, Rodrik swears himself to Lady Catelyn Stark and volunteers to accompany her to King's Landing so she might discreetly inform Lord Eddard of the assassination attempt on his son. When they reach White Harbour, Rodrik advises hiring a fishing sloop from the 3 sisters, but Catelyn instead insists on sailing aboard the galley Storm Dancer. The voyage proves to be very difficult for Rodrik, who is badly seasick, forcing him to cut off his whiskers. In King's Landing, Rodrik brings the dagger to Sir Arryn Santagar, Master at Arms of the Red Keep, in the hope he might recognise it, but to no avail. He and Arryn later share a drink at an inn on Eel Alley, where Rodrik and Catelyn are lodging. Meanwhile, Peter Baelish informs Catelyn the dagger once belonged to Tyrion Lannister. After Catelyn relays this information to Eddard, he decides she should return to Winterfell immediately. Rodrik and Catelyn travel north in disguised as father and daughter, but at a crossroad inn they encounter Tyrion Lannister, who subsequently recognizes Catelyn. Convinced by Peter Baelish's claim that Tyrion was responsible for the attempt on her son's life, Catelyn arrests him, with Rodrik aiding in taking him captive. Catelyn brings Tyrion to the Vale of Arryn, the seat of her sister, the now Lysa Arryn, acting as regent of the Vale, in place of her son Robert Arryn. During this journey through the Mountains of the Moon, the party are twice attacked by mountain clans. In the first skirmish, Rodrik defeats the clan champion, but is gravely wounded, suffering a deep cut to his left arm and a spear graze to his neck. He reaches the Bloody Gate only by being lashed to his saddle. There, he and Sir Willis Wode remain behind to recover under the care of Septons before eventually continuing to the Eyrie. When Catelyn departs the Eyrie, Sir Brendan Tully accompanies her and Rodrik as they sail from Goldtown back towards the north. Upon reaching White Harbour, Catelyn decides to join Robb Stark at Moat Cailin after he called the banners at the north in response to Eddard Stark's arrest in King's Landing. She sends Rodrik to Winterfell to serve as the Castellan in her stead. As Castellan, Rodrik trains new recruits for the Stark household guard, and in recognition of Osha's loyalty to Bran Stark, orders the wildling woman chains be removed. With Robb Stark crowned king in the north and Lady Catelyn in the south, Sir Rodrik Cassel shares command of Winterfell with Maester Luwin, who oversees the training of Catelyn Stark's new wards, Big Walder and Little Walder Frey, lodging them in Jon Snow's former bedchambers. After Shaggy Dog bites Little Walder, Rodrik orders both the Stark direwolves at Winterfell, Shaggy Dog and Summer, confined to the Godswood. When the Northern Lords gather at Winterfell for a harvest feast, Rodrik, Bran and Maester Luwin receive them, including the likes of Lord Wyman Manderley, Lady Dornella Hornwood, Mawson Hother Umber, and Leopold Tallheart. Recently widowed Lady Hornwood hints she would not object to marrying Rodrik if Robb were to command it. Rodrik later tells Bran that he's too old to offer her the protection she requires. He instructs the Umbers to cooperate with Lord Wyman Manderley in building new ships for the north. During the feast, Rodrik asks Lady Hornwood to dance, but she declines with courtesy. After Ramsay Snow, the bastard son of Roose Bolton, abducts Lady Hornwood following her departure from Winterfell, Rodrik marches east to confront him. His men kill Ramsay, so it is believed, and capture his servant, Reek. They arrive too late to save Lady Hornwood, who has starved to death after being imprisoned in a tower. Meanwhile, during the Ironborn raids along the Stony Shore, Theon Greyjoy seeks to draw Rodrik away from Winterfell by having Dagmere Cleftjaw threaten Torrhen Square. While Rodrik marches to relieve the holdfast, Theon seizes Winterfell and takes Bran and Rickon Stark captive. When the boys later disappear, Theon and Reek murder two Miller's sons and present their bodies burned as those of the Stark heirs. After defeating Dagmere Cleftjaw's shield wall at Torrhen Square, Rodrik sends a raven from Castle Cerwyn to Riverrun to inform Lady Catelyn of the apparent deaths of Bran and Rickon. He then gathers additional forces and returns to lay siege to Winterfell. Rodrik is joined by Leopold Tallheart and Lord Clay Cerwyn, parleying with Theon before the castle gates, demanding his surrender and the restoration of the castle. Theon threatens to hang Rodrik's daughter Beth should an assault be attempted, but Maester Luwin counsels Theon to yield, assuring him that Rodrik would permit him to take the Black. A force of Bolton men soon approach the besiegers, seemingly in support. Instead, they turn on Rodrik's host. In the fighting outside Winterfell, the Bolton leader reveals himself not as Reek, but the still living Ramsay Snow. Ramsay later boasts that he slew Rodrik by hacking off his left arm when the knight offered it to him in friendship. After the battle, Ramsay orders the slaughter of Theon's Ironborn and the burning of Winterfell. After the castle sack, the orphaned Beth is taken to the Dreadfort, where she still currently remains. Given the deaths of her father and Jory, it seems she is now the head of House Cassel.